fractured history, exploring the roots of conflict. The conflict between Russia and Ukraine is a complex tapestry woven from centuries of intertwined history. From the shared legacy of the Kievan Rus to the Soviet era, the seeds of conflict were sown. The Kievan Rus, a medieval East Slavic state, emerged as a major power in Europe. Both Russia and Ukraine trace their roots to this shared ancestor. The disintegration of the Kievan Rus led to distinct Ukrainian and Russian identities. Over centuries, Ukraine's territories were caught between powerful empires. From shared ancestry to divided loyalties, the rise of tensions. The 19th century witnessed a burgeoning Ukrainian national movement as intellectuals and activists sought to preserve and revive Ukrainian language, culture, and identity. The chaos of World War I and the collapse of the Russian Empire in 1917 provided a brief window of opportunity for Ukrainian independence. The Ukrainian People's Republic was declared in 1917, but its existence was short-lived. By 1922, Ukraine was forcibly incorporated into the Soviet Union as the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic. The Soviet government implemented policies aimed at suppressing Ukrainian national identity and integrating Ukraine economically and politically into the Soviet system. The Holodomor, a man-made famine engineered by Stalin's regime in 1932 to 1933, remains a deeply traumatic event in Ukrainian history. This genocide, which claimed millions of Ukrainian lives, was a brutal attempt to crush Ukrainian resistance to collectivization and Soviet rule. A nation divided, Ukraine's struggle for independence. Despite the hardships endured under Soviet rule, Ukrainian national identity persisted. The post-Stalin era witnessed a revival of Ukrainian culture and a growing desire for greater autonomy. The collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 presented Ukraine with a historic opportunity to break free from Russian domination. On August 24, 1991, Ukraine declared its independence from the crumbling Soviet Empire, a decision confirmed by a referendum in December 1991. However, Ukraine's newfound independence was not without its challenges, including Soviet-era economic structures, political corruption, and regional divisions. The country's geopolitical orientation became a key issue, with some advocating closer ties with Russia, while others favored integration with the West. The shadow of empire. Russia's resurgence and the annexation of Crimea. The early 21st century witnessed a resurgence of Russian assertiveness under the leadership of Vladimir Putin. Putin viewed the collapse of the Soviet Union as a geopolitical catastrophe and sought to restore Russia's influence in its near abroad, particularly in Ukraine. In 2014, Russia exploited political instability in Ukraine following the Euromaidan revolution, which ousted pro-Russian President Viktor Yanukovych. Russian forces, operating without insignia, seized control of the Crimean Peninsula, a strategically important region with a majority Russian population. A hastily organized referendum, widely condemned as illegitimate by the international community, was used to justify the annexation of Crimea into Russia. The annexation of Crimea marked a turning point in Russia-Ukraine relations and sent shockwaves through the international community. It demonstrated Russia's willingness to use military force to achieve its geopolitical objectives and violated Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. The price of freedom, human cost and displacement in the conflict. The annexation of Crimea was just the beginning of Russia's aggression against Ukraine. In the aftermath of the annexation, Russian-backed separatists launched armed uprisings in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions of eastern Ukraine. The conflict in eastern Ukraine quickly escalated into a full-blown war, with Ukrainian government forces battling Russian-backed separatists. Russia denied direct involvement in the conflict, claiming that any Russian soldiers present were volunteers. However, overwhelming evidence, including captured Russian military equipment and the testimonies of captured Russian soldiers, proved Russia's direct military intervention in the Donbass. The war in eastern Ukraine has had a devastating impact on the civilian population, with over 13,000 civilians killed and millions displaced. The conflict has also caused widespread destruction of infrastructure, including homes, schools, hospitals, and critical infrastructure. The war has exacerbated existing social and economic problems in Ukraine, including poverty, unemployment, and corruption. Shifting sands. Territorial changes and control in the Russia-Ukraine war. Following the annexation of Crimea in 2014, Russia turned its attention to eastern Ukraine, where Russian-backed separatists seized control of parts of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions. Despite numerous attempts at ceasefires and negotiations, the conflict in eastern Ukraine continued to simmer for years, with periodic flare-ups of violence. In February 2022, Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, marking a significant escalation of the conflict. Russian forces attacked Ukraine from multiple directions, including from Crimea, Russia, and Belarus. The initial phase of the invasion saw Russian forces make rapid advances into Ukrainian territory, capturing key cities and strategic locations. However, Ukrainian forces, bolstered by Western military aid and the determination of the Ukrainian people, mounted a fierce resistance, slowing the Russian advance and inflicting heavy casualties on the invading forces. Scars on the landscape. Economic impacts of the conflict. The Russia-Ukraine war has had a profound impact on the economies of both countries, as well as the global economy. Ukraine, once considered the breadbasket of Europe, has seen its economy devastated by the war. The fighting has destroyed infrastructure, disrupted agricultural production, and forced businesses to close. Russia's economy has also been hit hard by the war and the ensuing international sanctions, targeting its financial system, energy sector, and key industries. The war has also had a significant impact on global energy markets, leading to soaring energy prices. This has had a ripple effect on economies around the world, contributing to inflation and raising concerns about energy security. The economic fallout from the war is likely to be felt for years to come, with both Ukraine and Russia facing long-term economic challenges. Echoes of the past, shadows of the future, perspectives on the conflict. The Russia-Ukraine war is a complex conflict with deep historical roots. Russia sees the war as a defensive measure to protect its security interests. Ukraine views it as an unprovoked act of aggression by Russia. The international community has largely condemned Russia's invasion. A world-divided international response and implications. The Russia-Ukraine war has tested global cooperation and raised questions about international security. The response has been swift and united among Western countries. The US, EU, and allies imposed unprecedented sanctions on Russia. Western countries provided significant military and humanitarian aid to Ukraine. NATO strengthened its presence in Eastern Europe, deploying additional troops and equipment. A path forward, exploring potential resolutions and the future of Ukraine. As the Russia-Ukraine war grinds on, the search for a peaceful resolution remains elusive. The conflict has reached a stalemate, with neither side able to achieve a decisive military victory. One potential path to peace is through diplomacy and negotiation, requiring both sides to be willing to compromise and make concessions. Another potential scenario is a protracted conflict, with neither side able to achieve a decisive victory, resulting in a prolonged humanitarian crisis and continued economic hardship. The outcome of the war will have profound implications for the future of Ukraine, Russia, and the international order. A Russian victory would deal a devastating blow to Ukraine's sovereignty, while a Ukrainian victory could potentially lead to regime change in Moscow. the international community has a critical role to play in supporting Ukraine, holding Russia accountable for its aggression, and working to prevent further escalation of the conflict. If you find this video helpful, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel.